Hello, happy 2025. I'm Tim Wright. Thanks for watching the podcast. I'm very grateful to the supporters of this work. And just a brief, couple of statements that the book sales are going great. Now, we're not in the upper arena where, I had perceived we would be, but we are definitely moving through this gigantic amount of material, primarily through the Red Book, which I have up here. Now I am doing a analysis on sacramental philosophy. And that is basically a key term that we got from Saint Martin. Now, I'm not going to give a spoiler to the book too much. What we got going on here is I'm currently writing it. So what we're seeing is something that's never been done before. I'm pulling together from all the sources we have available and talking about it. So it's the Red Book in and of itself that launched us into that. Now, I am also doing a new book called The Echoes of Emotion. I believe it's what I'm calling it. I don't want to go pick it up. But that is a new book, too, where we are releasing for the first time the somnambulistic experiments of the group of Argony. It's a mesmer core that Willermoes was working on, that we've had the unknown translator, the unknown emulator, who translated by human translation, the Red Book, has also translated for the Order des Coens Ressuscités and our publishing arm, Kim Publishing, the somnambulistic material of Willermoes in the Sommels. So that's coming up too, Echoes of Emotion. I originally wanted it to be another icon book like Daniel Kramer. Oh, there's Echoes of Emotion. I wanted it to be an icon book like Daniel Kramer, but I found that once we got these materials translated, we should probably go that direction. So we got that. In the new Sacramental Philosophy book, I was actually in Sacramento for many, many years, so it's hard for me to say sacramental and not Sacramento. Anyway, I'm not there anymore, though, so don't try to look me up and never going back because it's so hot and the temperature raises so badly, I couldn't find it bearable anymore. So I have been lucky enough to leave that state and area. Anyway, just a small personal note. Sacramental philosophy actually goes through one of the quotes that Saint Martin gave in the Red Book. And we're going to systematically present the rite of the Elucoan. In this book, though, I do an analysis of the 2,400 names. These are the spiritual names of the 2,400 registry. So you're going to get to see not the names themselves, but I do an analysis of the names that you may encounter in the ritual. It is powerful stuff. I got help from P.D. Newman, there you go, who recently wrote Theurgy and its Practice, I believe. And he is a really, really good scholar. I highly recommend any of his work, especially due to the fact that he gave me the core of the research of the 2,400, which I have reproduced my essay in the Sacramental Philosophy book. I'm giving you an overview. Okay, whatever. So in the book, we talk about all of the dynamics of the Elucoan. Saint Martin essentially said that there's ordinations or sacraments that are given to you and then others that you must earn. And we're going through piece by piece and showing you. If you've gone through the right, then you'll be able to instantly clarify all this material. But if you haven't gone through the right, it's not going to expose it to you. So in that line, we've been selling books, we've been making videos, you got the Patreon going, we got the scholarly material, and we have Louis Claude de Saint Martin, Spirit of Things, Volume 1 and 2. Now, I've been told, see, there's these things that you have to just, when you're doing so much material as Kim Publishing, our publishing arm, is doing, you're gonna get into an issue with what you're saying. So in the preface of the Red Book, it says that Ivan Mosca put to sleep the Yellow Cohen in the mid-1950s. It should say 1960s. So your decade there has been corrected. I will correct it in the next. Actually, I'll correct it in the manuscript. So any future publications will say 1960s. Which I learned from some internal documents of the Society of Martinez de Pasquale, which I'm a member, and which I have relied on for scholarly material on the Elucoan. So I'm not, this is part of the book, by the way, I'm not grandiose and saying, I'm so special, watch me and all of the things I'm doing, and I'm going to take you to the promised land, and personifying this truth. I'm not doing that at all. What I'm doing is I'm just a mouthpiece representative, like a customer service rep, and I'm telling you about the Elucoan that I represent. I don't represent it in my personality. There's nothing special about me. Were you to go buy all these books and research the material yourself, you would be the advocate for the Elucoan in 2025. It's that simple. And this is what I found was so amazing about the academic material in the Society of Martinez de Pasquale. Your big names like Serge Callier, Dominique Clarambeau, on and on and on. I mean, there's so many of them. I don't want to leave anybody out, but there's so many researchers in France that are doing this the right way. They have not done, which I talk about in the essay of the new book, Sacramental Philosophy, they have not done a takeover with their personality and tried to become the persona non grata that everybody worships. They don't do that. Their material is firmly grounded in understanding of the material itself. And if they get any kind of recognition, it's because they know what they're talking about. So I give them recently the 2024 edition of the Bulletin of Society of Martinez de Pasquale came out, and it's only $10. It is in French, but it's only $10. Go through it. With our conversation, all this stuff ties in, and I'd have to talk for hours to tell you about everything, which I'm doing through the Patreon, so you can go and subscribe, but I can't possibly just blah 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 all this material out. So I do it little by little, reading things, writing things, and thank you so much for buying the books and subscribing to the podcast on Patreon. I mean, you'll notice as a Patreon subscriber that sometimes what you're paying for is just me to keep going and doing this. Sometimes the lectures you see are on YouTube. Sometimes they're not. So if you want the full oeuvre, to use a French word, of the material that I'm producing, fortunately, after I left Sacramento, then you will be able to see everything. But if you're just coming to the Elucoan Research channel on YouTube, or you're buying a book, you may get pieces of that whole picture, but you're not getting the full picture. And that's intentional, because I got to get support through this work. I mean, I'm not begging, but we do need to support the work. So if you can subscribe, go to Patreon and subscribe. It helps the work. Books are coming out, as you see, Volume 1 and 2 of The Spirit of Things. With that being said, last time we read about the beauty of Saint Martin's reflections. This time, in Volume 1, we're at the source of the primitive degradation of man. It's page 34 through 37. So just a few pages. And like I said, go buy the book because this will help you a lot. I will naturally do divergences from the material that we're reading, but you can follow along. And also, the new book, Sacramental Philosophy, is going to really give you a view that I'm not here to talk about myself. I mean, yeah, you're subscribing to my Patreon. Thank you for the support. You're buying books that I happen to be making because no one else will make them. They're very important books to this overarching view of the Elocoan and all of the research, and no one made them, so I had to learn how to make books. So there is a little bit of a cost, a buy-in, to start becoming conversant with this philosophy. Anyway, so in volume 1 of The Spirit of Things, it is not pride, as has been believed, that the source of mankind's original degradation, that was the source of mankind's original degradation. Rather, it is the weakness and the ease with which man allowed himself to be seduced by the allure of the physical world, in which he had been placed as its moderator, and over which he was meant to dominate. It was his viewing of its wonders with complacency that took over his essential and obligatory affection, while these wonders should have been seen as secondary in comparison to the divine wonders themselves, which he had the right to contemplate even more closely, since as the first mirror he came immediately after God. Pride could only arise in man after his weakness had opened the door to this abusive distraction. This pride could only have come from a corrupt cause already existing. But distinct from him, here we will ascertain the existence of these rebellious angels, which we have already discussed, and which we only presented in a mythological guise. Oh, I love these materials so much. I am so grateful to just be able to read them. Children naturally reveal the truth on this matter. One does not see pride in their early years. Rather, one sees much weakness and a tendency to be easily seduced and attracted by all the sensory objects around them. A childish and thoughtless inclination toward triviality seems to be their particular trait, as long as their soul has not yet developed enough to experience impressions of a higher order. When this time arrives, although they display all the symptoms of a desire for dominance and all the signs of an imperious and angry will, they do not display the signs of usurping pride or the urge to invade higher powers they do not know. They do not manifest for this reason the greed for riches, because they neither know these riches nor the pride they inspire in those who possess them. My God! Yeah, Saint Martin, in the middle of the French Revolution, or the aftermath of it, in 1780, I'm getting in trouble with people for dates, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's very close. 1780, could be 1781. I mean, I'm not big for dates. They're general areas of the dates. Anyway, this was when this book was written, and Saint Martin just went through it way, way good. I just think that there is no work that is more illustrative of the French mindset of Enlightenment period than these books. I will praise them and praise them. We've only read 30 pages together on the discussion, but as you can see, he does not wince on this. He is hitting hard. These are death shots to the, ego, whatever. I'm not talking about killing the ego, but definitely Saint Martin is writing to those egocentric people who think that no one can see them. We can see it. If someone already filled with these dangerous knowledges and the vices that accompany them approaches these young plants and paints the charm of these enchanting objects, which until then were foreign to them, he will easily awaken in their hearts the desire to attain these seductive pleasures, and the proud greed to appropriate all their sources. It's clearly demonstrated by this simple analogy that there must have been, before man and in relation to him, a source of pride that opened the way for this vice. Otherwise, he would never have known it, or at least it would have not been the origin of his deviation. Thus, the traditions that tell us of a rebellious angel prior to man only present what the observations we've just made reveal through natural revelation. Those who have condemned and rejected this point in universal traditions have not made a sufficiently thoughtful use of their discernment. When they tried to explain the origin of things without this key, they contradicted the nature of man, which, in its childhood, visibly offers this key. Whoa! Whoa! You'll hear me shoot fireworks for San Martin's thinking. Because he's talking about the fall being a fall of the individual. It's not a fall in external matter, and the prison is external, like we hear in Gnostic traditions that, oh, I'm just good at heart, and there's a world that's outside trying to corrupt me. Like, what Samartan is saying is that, which I talk about in sacramental philosophy, the individual is confused. And when the individual gets the power of their individuality, they confuse things further by using that individuality to reinforce something external to them that then reinforces their individuality. This was the same thing that I analyzed in the Vajrayana and Mahayana teachings of the Tibetan Buddhists, which I found the key to the Mahayana, at least, in Tsongkhapa. But a lot of people say Tsongkhapa was a terrorist or whatever. I mean, I've talked in multiple communities, and the Buddhist community, some of them don't like the Tsongkhapa Geshe tradition of the Gulag Tibetans. For whatever reason, I'm not getting into that debate. But I myself am a Vajrayana Buddhist. So I find the Elukoan and the Vajrayana very much align. Not, of course, you don't have all of the preliminaries, but it's primarily a monastic lifestyle, which gives you revelations of a divine hierarchy and a celestial abode. So there's a lot of overlap with these traditions. They would have done better to examine the matter more closely, and perhaps they would have recognized the subtlety which this rebellious angel acted, since by making most humans act according to his will, he persuaded them that he did not exist. This was because he concealed himself in his trickery, like a puppet master hidden from the view of the spectators, and did not appear to touch the automatons he made move. Oh, God! One of my best friends in life, I considered him my best friend. He probably didn't think much of me, but was the late Grandmaster Paul Edward Rana. And the guy was so amazing. He would do a roundhouse kick and break a piece of wood, out there in his apartment where he lived. And he was just a martial artist that was just really, really good at destroying things that he focused on. He was such a willful and amazing man. Not willful in like a pejorative way, but like he had a will to do things that other people had never done. One of which is the Elukoan. He resurrected the Elukoan. I'm just a representative of his resurrection. He did an amazing job with his dedication and perseverance. Just like he did in the black belt work that he taught to his students, and everything he did, he excelled at. I really thought he was a specimen of human excellence. Now, there's been some that say horrible things, and so I've heard you, but the point is if you knew Paul, like, those around him knew him, he was an amazing man, and I thought, wow, this guy's going to do something in life. His time was cut short with us, but he is severely missed by those who knew him. Now, if you're just one of those people who are trying to pridefully install yourself as someone in the same arena as Paul by destroying what his after effect of viewpoint was, you're a horrible person. You're going to experience, I talked about Vajrayana, so this is why I'm doing this. You're going to experience the thanatological review at the end of your life. Your ego is going to be presented with the ego conflicts that you've presented yourself. It's going to have to reconcile the horrible, atrocious behavior that you're demonstrating in relation to your fellows, including the horrible smear campaign on the person Paul Edward Rana. One might add that regarding divine pride, with which the first angels allowed themselves to be tainted, humans are commonly like children in relation to it. That is to say, they are more inclined to be seduced by trivial illusions, and to leave God aside, as self-proclaimed atheists do, rather than attempt to combat him or seize his throne. You're gonna love the new book, Sacramental Philosophy. I'm going through this and its architecture through the initiatic language of mystery systems. So you're gonna see this. That's why I'm so excited to just read this. And I didn't read this before when I was writing that. These are concurrent efforts. And because I'm so steeped in Saint Martin, you're seeing some of this really good synergistic material happen through moi. One will no doubt ask me for the key to the rebellion of these angels themselves. It can be found, like all keys, in the simple path of observation. If the existence of these rebellious and prideful angels prior to man is demonstrated by the course of our childhood, reason tells us that for them to have had the opportunity to become so, they must have been inhibited a region even more alluring than the one where primitive man was placed. They must have inhibited a region completely beautified, inhabited, a region completely beautified, whereas man was to repair his own, or rather, the one that these rebellious angels had degraded by allowing their mirror to tarnish. For a region that needs to be repaired necessarily implies that it was once a state that did not require this, and that it was like the end point of perfection to which the region lacking this embellishment must be brought. Now, the more this region inhabited by the rebellious angels was beautified, the closer the principles of beauty were to them and in full view, and consequently, the more they had the opportunity to seize them. This is similar to how pride grows and develops in human scholars, as they advance in their knowledge, revealing the principles of things, while one who is just beginning to explore these discoveries only tastes the allure and charm of science, not yet knowing the pride and the havoc it brings. Oh, put that in your pipe and smoke it. You know who you are if you're watching. Finally, we see that here below, it is generally the great and illustrious figures placed near kings who conspire against them and who wish to seize their thrones. Those who are merely delegates or simple functionaries may well sacrifice their duties to their pleasures. They may even be corrupted in the administration of their office, but they rarely start by attempting to usurp the crown. Oh, God! At the same time, for the proud greed of these angels to be imputed to them as a crime, they must have had the power not to let it be born in them. It would have sufficed for them, for that, to think that there was still an impenetrable center after the magnificent wonders they were witnessing. Therefore, they must have been the origin of this ambition, according to what we saw about freedom in the section on universal love. It must also be that their fall was more serious than that of man, since their sin must have begun with a crime, while man's fall only began with a seductive deception, as his knowledge could not initially have been developed as theirs, although had it followed its course and reached its completion, it would have eventually surpassed theirs, since he would have united his knowledge with theirs. God! I love this material. I am so grateful to be able to read those words. You don't understand the depth of Saint Martin until you read The Spirit of Things. It's not for me to just sell you books, which you should go buy, but the proof is in the pudding. I mean, this chapter, which is not a standalone chapter, in the sense that Saint Martin wrote it in a disjointed way where it doesn't connect with everything. He had a vision that he was displaying through this. As you see, he's talking about a previous chapter on universal love. There's continuity in his thinking, just so you know. These are simple and natural observations that allow us to clearly see, without suspicion, all the traditions of the earth that present the primitive man as going through a trial. Some of these traditions even depict him receiving this precept: subdue the earth and dominate it, and then representing him in a paradisical garden, which was nothing more than the initiation of the perfection and beautification he should have extended progressively over the entire earth. These observations, finally, offer us both the key and the connection of the two original transgressions without the need to insist on and exclusively use revelations as proofs, since all we need to do to avoid doubting is observe what is happening daily before our eyes. Oh, God! Does it need any more commentary than that? That is where you learn what the fall is. In Sacramental Philosophy, one more time I'll plug my book, which will be out in, I don't know, a couple of months or so. You're going to see the mechanics behind what we just read. Anyway, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for listening. Thanks for participating in this conversation, and buying the books and subscribing on the Patreon. All of this work is for you, the real you. Thanks a lot.